Michael Toich, sorry. Islam is the fastest growing religion in America and the world, but why? Anyone who does even a cursory investigation finds out much of the bad things we know and many of those who practice it. All one has to do is watch a little news to see. I'm so sorry, it says my eyesight's going. All we have to do is watch a little news to see the problems caused by many of its followers. Do you think that subconsciously these people desire the violence and harsh Sharia law Islam brings? Numerous surveys show that the vast majority of Muslims want Sharia and a high percentage support jihad. Why not move to or try Christianity? What's the underlying motive for these people to move to Islam? I think I can give you a very, very simple answer for that, Michael. And the answer, I think, is crystal clear to me. And the reason that people are joining Islam in large numbers and abandoning Christianity in large numbers is because Islam believes in itself. Islam believes in itself. Islam is not apologetic about Islam. Islam does not basically prostrate itself at the feet of everything else and put itself last. Islam believes in itself. And there are people let's take Britain as an example. It's true for our entire West and all around the world for that matter, but Britain is a pretty good example. So why forget about why somebody who's an immigrant from Islam would want to become a radicalized militant jihadist. That's obvious. They're surrounded in Britain by people who have all of this wealth, all of this comfort, all of the things that they don't have. And they look at the quality of the people in Britain, and all they see basically on the streets are cowards. They see ancient old people who just want to get the whole thing over with, and they see these young, progressive politicians, and especially including the BBC, who are falling down backwards to tell everybody that they think that these people and their way of life is just hunky-dory, and who are we to judge that the West is better than these Middle Eastern countries where so many of these refugees come from. And they see that and they think, well, if the West doesn't believe in itself, why should I believe in the West? And you can take that exact same thing to Christianity. In Britain, the Archbishop of Canterbury, I think it was the Archbishop of Canterbury. I know the Archbishop of Canterbury made all kinds of noises about, we can't assume that the Christianity is going to be the religion of Britain. He's the head of the Anglican Church, for the love of God. But also, where was it? I don't know if it was in Britain or maybe it was in Norway or something, but this woman who became an ordained priest had decided to take crucifixes down from inside one of these, like church meeting rooms because she didn't want to offend the Muslims that might come in. It's like that is all you need to know. People want to believe in things that people want to believe in things. And if you don't believe in Christianity and if you don't believe in America and you don't believe in any of these things, don't be surprised when people start finding something else to believe in. One of the reasons that these people are so radicalized is because no one's standing up for Britain. No one's standing up for America until recently anyway. It's different here. We still have a significant part of this country still loves this country, stands up for it, and is ready to fight for it, both physically and rhetorically. But in Europe, who's going to stand up for who's going to? If you're a young person, forget you either a Swedish person of Swedish heritage or you're a Swede a person living in Sweden and you're of Ethiopian heritage. Doesn't matter which one of those two things you are, or Sudanese or whatever. It doesn't matter. You move to Sweden, and the question is, on one hand, you've got a group of highly motivated, fired up people who are convinced that the future belongs to them and that they are the future. And on the other hand, you have a bunch of people who not only so little believe in what they say they believe in, that they're just terrified of offending anybody by simply stating what it is they believe. Who do you think you're going to join? Especially what kind of people do you think are going to make that decision? All the hotheads, all the people with passion. This is why these you don't see a whole lot of these stories, but you're going to see more of them. You see these European young women, right? These teenage girls or whatever. They're 18-year-old, these two German girls, and they decide they're going to run off to Syria and join ISIS. And they did. And they did it because their men are completely neutered. The German men that they had are just or the Swedish men or whatever, they're absolutely neutered. They're not allowed to be men. They're not allowed to be strong. They're not allowed to believe in anything. Not allowed to be tough. Not allowed to do anything. They're required to be these weaklings and these milquetoast nothing burgers, and they see these savage men around them, but they're men, and they go. So these naive, very stupid young white German girls go to Syria to join ISIS, and the first thing that happens is they're made into slave brides, and they're raped by large numbers of these people, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, they don't like ISIS anymore, and they try to get out, but it's too late to get out, so they're killed. And how would they know, right? I mean, how would they know? They're in a society in Europe that's become so completely feminized that when they see any kind of strength, any kind of commitment, any kind of passion, any kind of belief, any kind of willingness to give your life for something greater than you are, they see it, and some people want to be a part of it, even if it's something as awful as that. Even if it's something as awful as that. So, if it turned out that Christians had the same, and you still see a lot of this in America, but certainly not in Europe, if it turns out that Christians had the same belief and the same passion in their religion as the Muslims do, you wouldn't see this problem. On this subject, there is a guy who I met. I want to say his name is Father Flieger. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think so. And he is an Eastern Orthodox priest who I saw out in San Bernardino at an event I do every year in Redlands. This was probably 2 or 3 days after the San Bernardino massacre, and I was there, and I'd seen him once or twice before. The man is gigantic. He's, he looks like Rasputin would look if Rasputin was a really good, decent guy. He's gigantic. He's 6'3" or 4", and he's dressed in the black robes of the Russian Orthodox Church. And he got up there on stage before I went up there, and he gave a talk about Christianity. And as you were listening to this man speak, I remember thinking, hey, this guy really believes this stuff. He really does. He doesn't seem to be ashamed of this at all. He doesn't seem to be apologizing for his religion at all. He seems to really believe in it. And I believe in it too now. I'm with him. I'm with him 100%. He was absolutely calm, but he was passionate, and he wasn't so much hate-filled and all the rest of these nonsense liberal terms, but he was a committed believer in his religion, and when you listened to him speak, it made you want to be part of his religion and part of his congregation, because he's talking about important issues with the force of reason and logic, but mostly passion. He believes it. And if you had those kind of Christians everywhere, you wouldn't have this problem in Europe, but you don't, because this society is so rotten that we think that the only way now to show that we're good people, we've been so indoctrinated about how awful we are, they think the only way we can atone for being who we are is to basically go up to somebody who wants to kill us, hand them a knife, and then just hold our own head back and wait for them to saw our heads off, and that'll make it even. That'll show them what fundamentally good people we are underneath. It was certainly Andrew Klavan who talked about this, and I hadn't really made the connection before, but many years ago he was talking about this whole death wish that the West has is a result of Nazi Germany. It's a result of seeing what European white males were capable of, and that this whole thing, this whole virus was planted there, and planted indiscriminately. And by that I mean, yes, the things that the Nazis did were beyond imagination. Soviets too, for that matter, but they didn't have pictures. But let's not play that comparison game, at least not right now. What the Nazis did was simply the worst thing in history, and it's not just to the Jews. What they did to the Russians, what they did to the Poles, what they did to everybody, it's inconceivably evil. And it was from an extremely advanced culture in terms of philosophy and science, in terms of music and so on, and the whole species, I think, after World War II had this allergic kind of reaction to it. And what never got mentioned was, yes, it's true, the Nazis were horrible, horrible people who murdered millions of people. And the communists, also white Europeans, murdered millions and millions of people. But the people who stopped these murderers were also predominantly white Europeans. And the fact that it wasn't completely white Europeans, the fact that the United States was a multicultural society even then, is wonderful. And that's who stopped it. And it was essentially white Christian males who stopped slavery in this country. They stopped it. They fought for it. They didn't just let it go. All of these lessons are lost. We destroy ourselves because we have to be at war with something. It's how we're built. We're built to fight. We're built to worry. We're built we're built for conflict. And our military and our economic power and everything and our cultural power has been so great that there's been no real threat to this country since August 9th of 1945. Really, we haven't had that kind of threat since then. And so, 75 years now or something, we haven't had to fight anything and we haven't had to worry about anything in an existential way, so we fight ourselves and we're bored. We're bored. And this boredom is exhibited as a death wish in many, many places on the left. And just because these people are bored and want to die and they don't like themselves doesn't mean we have to go along with them. They're certainly welcome to do whatever they want to, but the rest of us who are not so empty and not so filled with nothing, who don't have this big black gaping hole of unmet emotional need in us, we don't need to prove how decent we are by rolling over to savages and murderers. We prove how decent we are on a daily basis by what we do with our lives and the people we help and the things we make and so on. So, yeah, I don't know.